Every year, thousands of startups are born with the same dream: disrupt an industry, challenge the giants, change the future. Some succeed, most fail. But a small number face a very different fate. They don't lose to the market. They don't run out of money. They don't get out-compete. Instead, they're bought, celebrated, praised by investors, featured in headlines. Then, they disappear. Their products vanish. Their technology goes silent. Their brand slowly fades away, almost as if they never existed. First glance, acquisitions look like success stories. A startup gets purchased. Founders become wealthy. Investors cash out. The acquiring company gains innovation. Everyone wins. At least that's the story we're told. But what if some acquisitions were never about growth? What if the real objective was elimination? Because behind closed boardroom doors, some of the largest corporations in the world have discovered a strategy far more effective than competing: buying the threat, and then quietly shutting it down. The hidden mechanism isn't always about building better products. Sometimes it's about preventing someone else from doing it. And once you understand how this game works, you'll never look at corporate acquisitions the same way again. Large corporations face a constant problem. Innovation is unpredictable. Startups move faster. They take risks. They experiment. And occasionally they create something dangerous. Dangerous not to society. Dangerous to incumbents. Because a single breakthrough can threaten billions in existing revenue. Imagine spending decades building a dominant market position. Then a startup appears with technology capable of making your core product obsolete. You have two options: compete or acquire. Most people assume acquisitions happen because a corporation wants innovation. And sometimes that's true. But innovation isn't always the prize. Sometimes innovation is the threat. The history of business is filled with examples of promising companies disappearing shortly after being acquired. Patents shelved. Products discontinued. Research projects cancelled. Teams dissolved. Publicly, the explanation is usually efficiency, strategic alignment, market conditions. Privately, the incentives can look very different, because killing a disruptive product can sometimes be more profitable than launching it. Think about the economics. If a startup threatens a billion-dollar revenue stream, allowing it to grow could be extremely expensive. Buying the company might cost hundreds of millions. But losing market dominance could cost billions. Suddenly, the acquisition isn't an investment. It's insurance. And insurance against disruption can be incredibly valuable. This strategy becomes even more powerful in technology. Many startups don't possess large customer bases. They possess ideas, patents, algorithms, engineering talent, future potential. The moment a giant corporation acquires those assets, it gains control over their future. Control is the key word. Not ownership. Control. Control over what gets developed. Control over what reaches consumers. Control over what never sees daylight. What they didn't want you to find out is that markets aren't always won by building the best product. Sometimes they're won by deciding which products never get the chance to compete. And the public rarely notices. Because most acquisitions arrive wrapped in optimistic press releases. Synergy, innovation, partnership, growth. The language sounds positive, but outcomes tell a different story. Many revolutionary ideas don't fail. They simply disappear. Before we go deeper into one of the most effective corporate defense strategies ever created, take a moment to support the investigation. If you're fascinated by the hidden systems shaping business empires, consumer behavior, and corporate power, subscribe to the Wealth Code Chronicles. And if you're enjoying this analysis, leave a like. It helps us continue exposing the invisible mechanisms operating behind some of the world's most powerful companies. Now here's where things become even more interesting. Because shutting down a startup isn't always the primary objective. Sometimes the objective is sending a message. Every industry contains potential challengers, ambitious founders, venture-backed innovators, entrepreneurs searching for weaknesses in established markets. When one promising disruptor gets acquired and disappears, competitors notice, investors notice, founders notice. The signal is subtle, but powerful. The dominant player isn't just defending market share. It's demonstrating power. And power has psychological value. Because fear can discourage competition before competition even begins. This is where acquisitions become more than financial transactions. They become strategic weapons. Not weapons of destruction, weapons of control. The corporation doesn't need to crush every rival. It only needs enough influence to shape the competitive landscape. The result is a market that appears competitive on the surface while remaining heavily influenced by a handful of dominant players underneath. But perhaps the most valuable asset acquired isn't technology. It's talent. A startup's engineers, designers, researchers, executives. Many acquisitions are known internally as acqui-hires. The company buys the startup primarily to gain access to the people. The product may disappear. The team remains. And by absorbing talented innovators, large corporations reduce the probability that those same people will build future threats elsewhere. Once again, the objective isn't necessarily growth. It's risk reduction. And risk reduction often creates enormous shareholder value. The most fascinating part is that this strategy rarely requires secrecy. The transactions are public. The announcements are public. The headlines are public. Yet the deeper incentive often remains invisible. Because people naturally focus on what was acquired, not on what was prevented. And that's where the real story begins. In business, the biggest victories are often invisible. The product that never launches. The competitor that never scales. The technology that never reaches consumers. The disruption that never happens. Those outcomes don't generate headlines. But they can generate billions. If you want to decode the systems behind these corporate empires and build your own, check the first link in the description. Because the people who understand psychology gain an advantage over those who are simply reacting to it. The next time you hear about a startup being acquired by a giant corporation, ask a different question. Not what the buyer gained, but what they prevented. Because the answer may reveal far more about the deal than any press release ever could. The modern business battlefield isn't always fought through innovation. Sometimes it's fought through acquisition. Sometimes it's fought through influence. And sometimes the most effective way to defeat a competitor isn't to beat them. It's to make sure they never enter the race. That's the hidden logic behind some of the biggest acquisitions in corporate history. Not expansion, not innovation, control. And in a world where control often determines who survives, the most powerful business strategy may be eliminating threats before the public even realizes they existed.